In this video, you'll discover some of the worst foods that lead to brain inflammation. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, some of the things that you're doing on a daily basis are causing an inflammatory response in your brain. Now, you may think that somebody who has a problem with brain inflammation is somebody who's got some serious problems, but the truth is, more people have this issue than you think, and it may even be you. So stick around to the end of this video where we talk about some of the symptoms of brain inflammation and all the foods that are driving this problem, some of the worst ones. But before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, it is a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our notification community. And I'm going to help you excel your health and your life. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the symptoms of brain inflammation before we jump into some of the foods, because you have to be able to identify if you have this issue. And like I said, if you think of somebody who has an inflammatory problem in the brain as somebody who's got some serious conditions, that's not the case. Most people have an inflammatory condition within the brain that's just causing minor symptoms that is really disrupting your life. Some of these symptoms are going to be poor focus, right? And you're going to see a lot of these different symptoms. You're like, oh yeah, this is something I struggle with. Poor focus, poor mental speeds, as in maybe you're reading and your brain just doesn't keep up with the things that you're doing. It could be whether you're reading or trying to complete a task, your brain just can't move along quick enough for you. Unclear thoughts, brain fog, all right? This is a prime example of somebody who has a lot of this going on. Like if you put an image to it, it's that person who's like in their head mentally, they just can't see a clear picture as to what's happening in life. It's like this fog that has just come over them. So brain fog, poor memory is a good one. Intolerance. Now, intolerance can be intolerance to the foods. It can be intolerance to people around you. You just have a really poor mood all the time. I mean, intolerance is just intolerance to everything. And the reason that food can be a particular issue when we talk about intolerance is because the gut health plays a huge role in how your brain's actually functioning. Weight gain is another issue, and basically what happens is through this inflammatory problem, your brain can't hear certain signals from hormones like leptin. That is a satiety hormone, a hormone that's telling you to stop eating. Imagine if your brain can't hear that. You just keep eating and eating and you don't have the proper signals. Fatigue is a big one, and then mood disorders, okay? So mood disorders are a big problem today, okay? We think of people who have depression, people who have anxiety, okay? This is all a result of a brain problem and that brain inflammation that is causing just chaos within your brain. So let's dive into the foods that are causing this. Fructose is a big one, okay? When we think of fructose, one of the major things that comes to mind is going to be high fructose corn syrup, okay? This high fructose corn syrup is in everything. Sodas, energy drink, sports drinks is a major one too. Recently, I went on vacation and I spent a little bit too long in the sauna and sweat out quite a bit. But the problem that I needed is I needed some electrolytes. So I was going to the store. I was going to grab one of these sports drinks. Let me tell you, it took me about 20 to 25 minutes to find a sports drink that was not loaded with high fructose corn syrup. I was actually blown away by this. What I ended up leaving with was a coconut water, lots of potassium in there. And of course, it's a pretty decent sports drink. Next is going to be fruit juice. Okay, fruit juice is one of those things you may think of as being healthier, but the truth is there's an enormous amount of fructose. Yes, fructose is in fruit. It's a healthier version of it, but drinking an enormous glass of it is not a good idea. Now, all studies basically point to this, is that when you consume more fructose, you have an increase in weight, and also it is going to also be correlated with memory impairment, okay? That's what pretty much every study that I came across when I was doing this video was showing me. Now, the other thing that was showing me, that I was seeing here, is that when you had a diet that was high in sugar, it was correlated with an inflammatory problem within the brain and also memory impairment, okay? How many people out there just joke about their memory not being good, right? It actually scares me because I have, just people I know, friends, family, and they go, oh, my memory's not what it used to be. And it's like, no, that's not good, because that's a sign of your brain not functioning well. It's not like a cute thing of I'm getting older, or a cute thing of, this just happens every once in a while. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is alarming. They're getting brain inflammation, brain degeneration. Now, the other thing that was interesting about some of the studies I found is that high fructose corn syrup was found to be worse in causing brain impairment and inflammation in the brain than just your regular sugar. Let's say like a refined white sugar, or maybe even a coconut sugar. So any of these other sugars out there were nowhere near as bad in causing brain impairment as the high fructose corn syrup was. So when we think of high fructose corn syrup, think of a lot of these different drinks out there, and it's not a good thing. We got to make sure that we cut this out. And when you start looking at all the different packaged foods and everything out there, you would be surprised at how many of them have this. So watch out for that. Hydrogenated oils, also known as trans fats. This is another major problem for so many people because they're eating these things on a daily basis. Now, when we think of the brain and the nervous system, it is comprised of 65% plus fat, okay? So essentially what that means is that if you're putting a really unhealthy bad fat into the system, then you're basically taking a healthy, your nervous system, which is this, basically a glob of big healthy fat, and you're just shoving all that terrible fat that is not good in there, and you're making a nervous system made of trash, okay? So we have to be careful with this. This hydrogenated oil, we need to make sure that we're avoiding. You're typically finding it in pretty much all packaged foods. The reason that you're going to find it in a lot of packaged foods is because one, it's cheap, and two, it helps stabilize the food and increase the shelf life. Fried foods, okay, so if you're going to restaurants getting fried foods at your favorite fast food place, definitely something you want to avoid. Margarine's a big one, and then omega-6 oils are also a problem because when you go and you create an omega-6 dominance in the brain and the nervous system, it doesn't function as well. Think of soybean oil as a very common one today where the use of soybean oil has skyrocketed and all these omega-6s are not healthy. And that's why so many people can go take a high dose of omega-3 and feel really good. Now, if you had too much omega-3 in the system and too little omega-6, that wouldn't be good either. But unfortunately, with today's diet, many people have a very high level of omega-6. And because they have that dominance level, it also is causing a lot of brain dysfunction. Now, what was found in the research is that diets high in trans fats was equated to poor memory, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, and slow cognitive endurance. Okay, so I can't stress enough. Trans fats, these hydrogenated oils, we got to cut them out. We need to make sure that we're sticking to good, healthy fats. Think coconut oil, think avocado oil, think olive oil. These are all good, great fats, and there's no reason that we need to be eating foods with this stuff in it because it's going to drive brain inflammation. It's going to drive cognitive impairment, and of course, it can even lead to problems down the road like dementia, like we're seeing in the research. Next is going to be fish, okay? So you're thinking to yourself, why is fish a big problem for brain inflammation? Well, here's the major concern when it comes to fish, and that's mercury. Mercury is a neurotoxin, it's a neurological poison, and it's one of the most devastating poisons to the nervous system. Here's why. It's because when you eat fish that has a bunch of mercury in it, essentially that all gets stored in the fat tissue. Well, guess where the fat tissue is? That's your brain, that's your nervous system. So it likes to go there. Now, when they looked at different fish out there, what they found is that fish was capable of carrying 1 million times the mercury load as the surrounding water that it was in. So it was pretty incredible that these fish were just taking in all this mercury, it's storing into their tissue, and then of course you're eating it, and that is not healthy. So we have to be really careful with this because the mercury has been proven in the science to damage brain tissue and also create neurotransmitter imbalance. Okay, when you think of people who have neurotransmitter imbalance, these are the hormones in the brain. They're the hormones that tell you to feel happy, to feel calm. Imagine if these hormones are going crazy. You could be depressed. You can just not feel well. You can have a hard time sleeping. It can create complete chaos. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about as well, without going too far off the topic, is that people who have mercury fillings, this is a major, major problem as that mercury leaches into the brain and the nervous system, causing severe brain problems. Now, a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, until you can get that mercury from the nervous system, get that mercury from the brain, they just don't feel well and they can't really get their life back until that's cleared out. What I'll do is I'll put in a link in the description below, a link to a video where I talked about different herbs that you can use to help detox your brain. It's very important. It's more of a clinical thing that we deal with. However, I'll put that video in the description below so you can look at that because it's to be taken very seriously if you have this problem. Next is going to be refined grains. This is a big problem as well because, of course, we live in a society eating an enormous amount of refined grains. It's not good. These refined grains have a high glycemic load. This increased glycemic load has been correlated greatly to brain impairment. And so people who are going around eating all these white breads, these refined grains, all these packaged foods loaded with the refined grains, it's going to cause a lot of brain impairment. The studies prove it. And the other thing, beyond the high glycemic load that it's going to have, it also is going to have gluten in it. This gluten has been proven to be a neuroinflammation. And there's different studies out there that correlated gluten to having almost a 100% success rate in causing neuroinflammation. That's not a success rate that we're proud of or that we should be happy about at all. And so gluten's related to that neuroinflammation. And what they found is that when elderly people consumed a diet of 58% carbs that also was high in gluten, what they found is that they had a 2 times greater risk of mental impairment and dementia. That is something that is really dangerous and not something that we want to have. We want to have a good, sharp memory. It's so important. And by the way, what I'll do is I'll put a link to a video right here where I did a video teaching you how to improve your memory and your focus. And so check that video out. But when we look at all these topics right here, it should be taken very seriously. It's something that's so important to understand that most people are walking around with a certain level of neuroinflammation. It's dangerous as to what it can cause down the road as far as true mental diseases, but it also is very dangerous in the now, because when you think of yourself having a hard time focusing, having that brain fog, having some gut issues, I mean, this is all major problems that is going to disrupt your life even further down the road if you don't go and get them straightened out. So take this seriously, and also let me know in the comments below if you think you have something like this. Share this video with your friends and check out this video over here where I talk about the top herbs in order to help detox your brain. Utilize these different nutrients here because this is what is really necessary to detox the brain and offer the proper brain support